I will show you exactly how remote Power BI consulting works and how you can use it to help businesses all over the world. I've been doing remote Power BI consulting for a long time, and I know that it can allow you to work from anywhere in the world. I've gone traveling for a month and still been able to help my clients. It also allows you to serve clients all over the world, which can be super exciting, but also good for your business. And finally, it gives you the flexibility to work on your own terms, choose your own hours, choose the client and the people you work with. So that's what we're going to look at. Now, for remote Power BI consulting, this video is going to focus more from the lens of the Power BI consultant. We may do a future video more from the perspective of the business user. Stay tuned for that. So let me take you, the Power BI consultant, step by step as you work with a remote business client. We will also talk about tools and processes you need to work remotely with a client, and about security, how to handle clients' sensitive data and share work files securely. I'm Avi Singh, a Microsoft MVP and a best-selling Power BI author, and I have worked with clients far and wide, from startups to Fortune 500 all over the world. And not just that, I've also helped my students from all across the world become successful Power BI professionals through my Power BI training programs. And if you want to become a Power BI pro, make sure to subscribe and click that bell so you're notified whenever I go live to answer your Power BI questions. Let's go step by step through a remote Power BI consulting journey. Now, I do want to let you know that this video is part of a series. It's part of the How to Become a Power BI Consultant playlist, and you can access the playlist by clicking the link in the corner or down in the description below. Now, we are creating this series based on your votes and suggestions on our first video in that playlist. So I do want to thank everybody who voted or added their suggestions in there. Now, you can add, if you have any questions or ideas for new videos in this series, you can just leave a comment and let me know. For our first step here, how to find leads or prospective clients. Now, many of you did vote to learn more about this, but that's a big topic in itself, and we want to do justice to it. So we would be covering it in a future video in a lot more detail. So for this video, we're going to pick up things from your initial meeting with a prospective client, somebody who's interested in your service. Now, I want you to know that this is the same advice that I share with my Six Figures Power BI consultant group, where I'm coaching Power BI professionals to become successful Power BI consultants. So I want you to know and rest assured that this has been tried and tested, and we know that it works. By the way, the Pro Plus group is a pretty amazing group of individuals. You have met many of them on my YouTube channel. And if you are curious and want to know more about the program, then we're going to link it in the corner and down in the description as well. So the first step we pick up from is your initial meeting with a prospective client. Now, of course, we're talking about remote Power BI consulting. So your options are you can do it over phone or you can do a web conference call. Now, phone can be convenient at times, and I do use that sometimes to talk with prospective clients, but I generally prefer and recommend the web conference call, because getting them face to face, virtually at least, it's gonna give you help you establish trust and connection with them, which can be very important for this initial meeting. So I recommend the web conference call. Now here, let's talk about the tools and processes. There are lots and lots of options out there, from Microsoft Teams to GoToMeeting, Zoom, WebEx. It really doesn't matter much. You can use the tool that you like. You can try some of them out. A lot of them have free options. Even when it's paid, it's usually a very nominal charge. Of course, sometimes the client may have their own conferencing tool, and you can use that too. Now, another tool that I would highly recommend in this scenario is a calendar scheduling tool, because otherwise you might find yourself wasting a lot of your own time and your prospective client's time by just going back and forth, and that may sometimes result in lost leads where you just would not be able to meet easily. And that's where calendar scheduling tools can really help you out. Calendly is my favorite because it's so simple to use, but there's Acuity, there's BookMe, and lots of other tools on the market. Now, generally what you do is once you have this tool, you set it up, you sync your calendar, and then you can include a link in email or a link on a website which your potential clients can use to book a meeting with you. So here I just have some examples for you from some for members of the Pro Plus program that I mentioned earlier. So this is Charles Elwood, his website Solismatica, and you can see that right front and center he has the schedule a call button, and if you click that, again it gives you this very easy interface to the potential client to pick a date, pick a time that works for them, and they can book a meeting after answering a few questions. Same thing, Greg Berg, Big Wave BI, schedule a call button right there. It makes it really super convenient for a potential client to book the meeting. And again, you can put it up on your website. You can include the link in your email if you're going back and forth with somebody. So once that meeting is set up, what is the goal of this initial meeting? Now, this is where a lot of people get tripped up, because they think that the goal of this is to sell their services, to sell themselves, which is not quite true. In fact, I definitely don't want you to approach it this way. Instead of selling, the word that I want you to hang on to is serve. That is your duty number one, to serve your clients. And if that is the goal, then what becomes really important is that you listen, and understand what are their challenges, what are their needs, and then just see if what the services you provide, is that going to be a good fit for them, and if so, explain it to them and offer your services to them. So that's going to be your initial meeting. Now, most likely what we call the close, where you agree on a contract and start working, ready to start working, that's probably not going to happen on the initial meeting. And that's where the next step comes in, which is there's going to be some follow-up before you sign on the dotted line on the contract. So the follow-up, you can certainly follow up via email after the initial meeting. In fact, I would highly recommend that. You maybe recap the meeting, talk about the next steps, just check with them and so forth. But you can also just call them up, or you can schedule further web conference calls. And depending on how simple or complex the project is, that may vary the amount of follow-up you might have to do. Now, one thing that is crucial in this stage, perhaps even in the initial meeting, is your story. Now, what do I mean by that? Now, if you have been around my channel, you've heard me talk about this quite a bit, which is that in this day and age, the path to success, you can't get there by just doing good work. It just doesn't cut it. You do good work, but you gotta tell great stories. And the way to succeed is to do this over and over again in that agile cycle. And every time you do it, you get better and better. And that's the path to success. So my friend, don't just do good work, tell great stories. And this is where your stories are gonna really help you close this and convince your client that, yep, you can definitely deliver the value that they're looking for. Now, there are lots of different ways to do it. There's no right or wrong way. Some of the ones that I've seen are interactive demos. And here again is another member from our Pro Plus program, the 6 Figures Power BI consultant that I mentioned earlier. This is Eamon Kelly, and his site is All Over My Data, and it's got a beautiful site with lots of interactive demos that you can click on. So here I'm just going to click on Management Insights, and potential client can go full screen and kind of really interact. So again, you can direct them to your website, or you can show this to them. If you're having a web conference call, you can just share your screen and show that to them. That could be one way to share your story, but that's just one. You can share your past work in a lot of different ways. You can show screenshots, maybe blur out sensitive data, or just talk about it. You can definitely share client testimonials. You can talk about presentations you've done. And talking about that, now, you know that I believe in this, right? This do good work, tell great stories. And that is why we have created a platform for everybody to have a chance to tell their story, not just do good work, but tell their story. And that is our Power BI dashboard showcase and makeover. And we run this every single month, and that is your opportunity, whether you're in my Learn Power BI program or whether you follow me on YouTube, to bring your dashboard, share the work you've done, and tell your story. Get started on that journey, the path to success. So we're going to link to that in the corner and down in the description as well. Go check it out, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the next dashboard showcase and makeover. But let's keep going on this stage. So you've done some follow-up, you've gone back and forth. This should lead to a contract, a signed contract, agreement, statement of work. Sometimes they use different names. It's pretty much the same thing. Now, this can be hourly, or project-based. And again, that might depend on your client's circumstances, the way they like to work, and a few other factors. But either one is a viable option. Now, another crucial part of this contract is the non-disclosure agreement, or NDA. Now, I talked about security. Now, NDA should be part of every single contract because this is what this should be in place to protect both parties. So that's a key element of security and trust, as we were talking about earlier. All right, so that is our follow-up and contract. So now you have a signed contract, and now you're ready to go on to the next steps, which are project kickoff and then regular meetings or the project rhythm. So the kickoff meeting, what I like to do is I like to restate the expectations, goals, and style of work. Now, a lot of this has been touched upon in my initial meetings with the clients, in the follow-up, and definitely been written down in the contract, but still just to recap some of it and especially emphasize the agile approach. I'm a huge believer in that. I believe Power BI is agile BI. So I just remind them that that's the way we're going to work. We're not going to, kind of solve this big thing and take 6 months to do it and probably fail trying. We're just going to go in weekly sprints and see how fast and how far we can go in most typically a month time period. So I start with that. And then, of course, the key discussion is around me as a Power BI consultant getting access to their data. I'll come back to that in a second. Some of the other things that I discuss is in the kickoff meeting, I want to establish a recurring meeting schedule. This is typically every week. So, so I'll just find the time that works for both of us. And let's say we agree to meet Monday, 12 noon Pacific and so forth. And yep, that works for both parties. And I would probably set up a recurring calendar meeting for everybody involved. So we established that. And that way we have a specific meeting schedule. And another thing that I talk about is that, hey, how do they prefer to be contacted in between meetings? So if we're going to meet next Monday, but if I have a question or they want to reach out to me, what communication is going to work best? Sometimes it's as simple as email, and that can work great. Sometimes we use Skype or Slack or something else, Microsoft Teams. And again, that depends on the client and their preference. So let's talk about access to data. Now this, I'm not sure, this may be controversial, but hey, this is the way I have worked on a lot of the projects that I start off, and that is what we recommend all of our Pro Plus members to use this approach. And the approach is that initially when I'm starting on a new project with a new client, I almost always start off by asking them to export some of their data, maybe not all of it. Maybe it's if it's big data, if it's thousands of millions of rows, I'm not going to ask them to export all of it, but at least a big enough sample that I can start working with that exported data and start building my models off of that. Now, this does require some skill because eventually you don't want to deliver them something which is connected to these CSV Excel files rather than their SQL or Azure data warehouse. So you need to know how to later switch those connections. But we're going to talk about that a little bit later when we talk about final project delivery. But this gets you moving the fastest because there's very little roadblocks involved, and you can use this very simply by simply having a secure shared drive, and we'll talk about that too. But sometimes if there are cloud resources, you can get access to the cloud resources. That's also possible, and in some cases where they're on-premise resources, you might have to wait for them to grant you access to that. Now, I've seen that this typically takes the longest time, and again, since I want to move fast, Power BI is Agile BI, so I typically go for and recommend the first approach. And you can, again, always switch to later on. Like later on, if you get direct access to their cloud system or their on-premise system, you can just switch your model to point to that and not miss a beat, just keep on working. But meanwhile, you can have a model, start building, cleaning up data, the query editor, modeling, and even build dashboards, and you can show to them, get their feedback and so forth. So it kind of keeps you going. So that's the key part. You establish the access to data. Now, I did say the secured shared drive. Now, of course, that one is really easy in this day and age. There are lots of different ways to do it. You can do it through SharePoint, OneDrive, G Drive, Dropbox. I'm sure there are other options there. And usually we share through a secure link. So only the validated parties, right, the ones who have the secure link are going to have access to it. So that's typically the way we kind of exchange files back and forth, just by keeping it on that secure shared drive. So let's talk about regular meetings. As I had said earlier, this is generally weekly. And I would say that I love this part because since I'm only meeting with them typically once a week, typically for 1 hour, sometimes during the kickoff you might have to have schedule additional meetings, but after that the cadence is typically once a week, works great. So this gives you freedom to work offline in the hours that you choose. So I have a family, I got kids, so I can, run around, do something, pick them up from school, or spend time with them, go to the concerts and stuff, and then choose my hours or when I'll be working on this project. So it gives me that freedom, and of course, we definitely have the freedom to work anywhere. Pretty much the only requirement is good internet connection. So what is going to happen in those meetings though, right? So you're working pretty much offline, you got the requirements and all that, and then you're going to go work offline. So you're going to come to the meeting and you're going to show the work that's done. You're going to gather the client feedback. So of course, it's going to say, well, yeah, that looks good. Oh, well, maybe not this. So again, you're going to just gather that in. And often what happens is as you're working through the data, you're going to have lots of questions. Like I start saying, oh, why is this column this way? Why aren't these values unique? Or what's going on with this? How are these two tables connected? What's more important? Something like that. So as you're working through it, what I generally do is I write down all of those questions. And sometimes if it's urgent, if it's a roadblock, then I would ping them over email, Slack, or whatever our agreed upon communication method was. But generally, I would save those for the meeting and just ask them in the meeting my list of questions. And of course, the last thing you do is you discuss plans for next week. Now, I had said Power BI is agile BI. So you should be moving in these weekly sprints, and you should generally have a finished product at the month end. By finished product should be a working model end to end. You shouldn't spend like the first month first month we're going to clean up the data and spend all the time in the query editor. No, work in quick cycles, and really even in week 1 you should have a finished product. You should have a simple model with just a few tables, just a few DAX measures, and just a few basic visuals. And sometimes even that can be so powerful that it blows the client away. It's like, whoa, we did that in a week? That's crazy. But hey, that's the power of Power BI. Now here, let's talk about tools and processes a little bit. Now, so of course, project management, but nothing heavyweight, not those crazy Microsoft project thing. Usually some of these newer, modern, lighter weight tools are going to work great for you. There's Trello, there's Microsoft Planner, there's Asana, there's Monday.com, and I'm sure there are lots more. Just use whatever makes sense for you. I've had good experience with Trello. It's really easy, simple to start with. So yeah, I would definitely recommend that. So guys, that's how you would kind of iterate and go in the cycle. And if you do this right, that should lead you to that finish line of delivering the final project. So again, if you've been using a secured shared drive, then your files are already on the shared drive, nothing else to be done. Now, we had talked about that to speed things up, you can start connecting to, instead of their direct data sources, you can connect instead to exported data. If you had done that, you definitely want to now switch it over to their live databases, cloud or on-premise, so that they can run with it, and that's going to be a lot more efficient for them. And of course, a key part here is going to be a final walkthrough. And again, since you've been going on weekly sprints, there should be no surprises. They should know exactly what they're getting, but just kind of do a final walkthrough and make sure you have delivered whatever you had discussed throughout this process. Now, the key question is what happens next? But before that, I have something really exciting to share. Now, all of these steps that I've talked about so far, the Pro Plus group that I mentioned, they actually go through these exact steps as they work through a real Power BI project. So a real Power BI project is a program that we run for our Pro Plus members, where we connect them with real world projects, with real business clients, and they go through, again, the exact same steps that we talked about. Now, the exciting part is that we are just about to have the final presentations for this batch, and it's going to be on April 24th and May 1. You're going to be seeing 8 exciting project presentations, and they're going to share their story, which is what I talked about, right? Do good work, tell great stories. They're going to share their stories and the ups and the downs. I've asked them to be raw, unfiltered, just share their experience with this real Power BI project. There is a cash prize, and hey, lucky you, all of you YouTube viewers are going to help us select the winner by voting for the best presentation. So you do not want to miss this. Mark this in your calendar. In fact, we're going to link put a link in the corner and in the description below where you can get more information and add these events to your calendar. You don't want to miss these. So what happens next after you deliver whatever initially your contract or arrangement was? We're going to deliver on this project. Now, hey, you've heard me say this again and again because it is true and it's important. Power BI is agile BI. And another thing that I would say is that BI is really never done. And you might think that it's, oh yeah, I mean, I would do this. But what I've experienced is that it's like peeling an onion. So even when you start working with an organization, initially they might say that, oh, this is all we need. But once they have that, it's going to spark so many other questions in their heads. And I've seen organizations just come alive once this beast is unleashed in there, right? And because it kind of really gets them excited that, oh, once they see that how easy it is, how rapid it is, how interactive it is, then they keep going on this path where they say, oh, what's next? What's next? Like, can we do this? Can we do that? So as a consultant, I've always seen that there's always work to be done. Now, of course, having said that, another thing that I would say, and again, this may not be everybody, but it is something that I believe in, that I believe in empowering my clients. So as part of consulting, I'm also training them because I do want them to kind of stand up for themselves, understand their projects, and be able to make at least simple changes, straightforward changes in the projects themselves, and only come back to me if they need some heavy lifting. That's just kind of my approach. And I think if you do good, it comes back to you through referrals, through other things, through other organizations, other teams within that organizations reaching out to you for your help. So that's, and certainly I have found this truly exciting. So folks, that is the journey for remote Power BI consulting. If you have any questions or if you have any ideas for future videos we should do as part of this series, as part of this playlist, then leave a comment and let us know. Now, of course, if you have general questions, I would also invite you to join our monthly Talk Power BI Q&A show, and we often hang out for 3 to 5 hours answering all of your Power BI questions, and we're going to put the link in the corner and down in the description so you can find out more information about that. Now, click to keep watching more videos from us. Don't forget to subscribe, as that really helps support our channel and helps us put out great content. I'll see you next time. Until then, power on.